Hey, welcome back, knife nerds and everyday care people. It's your boy, the Big Canucker, coming at you with another knife review here. This was one of my first knife purchases. This one here was also as you can see, it is a fixed blade, and it is one of the knives that I picked up to start practicing some bushcrafting. I did some research out there, and a lot of people spoke very highly of this Schrade SCHF42, which is Griffin designed by a gentleman by the name of Brian Griffin. And no, not the Family Guy Brian Griffin. I guess Brian Griffin is you know what? I don't know who the heck Brian Griffin is. If you can, in the comments below, if you know who Brian Griffin is or anything about him, put a link in there so I can read about this fella. I certainly didn't pick this knife up because of the Griffin design, but I just thought I'd mention it out there. And yeah, you know what? I'm a knife guy. I'm more of a folding knife guy, but everybody needs a really good fixed blade. And I was just starting out in my knife collecting world, and I needed a fixed blade. Well, at least I thought I needed a fixed blade, and because I wanted to go out and make some feather sticks and build some deadfall traps and learn how to live off the land, and I had a heck of a lot of fun doing it with this particular knife. So let's kind of go over this here a little bit. So as I mentioned, if you know who Brian Griffin is, you know, leave me a description or a link there I can read about this fella, and yeah, just for my own edification and knowledge. But this is a Schrade SCHF42. It seems to be kind of a I'm going to say survival bushcrafting knife. It's got a lot of good things going for it, and also a lot of things that are not great going for it. But let's have a look at the size here real quick, compare it. Of course, we've got the ever-present, the ever-popular Paramilitary 2 by Spyderco, which is the big daddy of everyday carry. And then we've got this bugger here too as well, which is the Dragonfly. So that gives you an idea of the size of this knife. It is a really, really, I'm not going to say a big knife, because there are some fixed blades out there that are basically mini swords. This one here, fits the hand, my hand, really, really well. But your blade length is a little over 5 inches, 5.12 inches. The blade material is 1095 high carbon steel. Of course, it's got a black DLC coating on it that has held up reasonably well over time. As you can see, I've really put it through its paces here too as well. Your handle length is 4.83 inches, so just a little under 8 inches, or a little under 5 inches, and your overall length is just a smidge smaller than 10 inches, so 9.95 inches. Your handle material is made of something called grivery, which, as far as I can tell, it's just a plastic, a pretty tough plastic, but plastic nonetheless. It's got a slight bit of texturing. I've seen some reviews out there that say, oh, as it gets wet, it gets more grippy and all this stuff. Yeah, I don't think so. No, I mean, my plan with this knife, and my plan still is to remove these grivery handles, and I'm going to whittle and put some wood handles on there, and I'm going to stabilize the wood myself, and I'm going to make myself some handles with it. I just think it'll add so much to this knife. It's not an ugly looking knife. It's a little bit, I mean, when I first got it, I was really blown away by how well it worked. But over time, I've learned a little bit more, and as I've used this knife more and more, its cons have come out a little bit more. But let's quickly finish going over this here too as well. Of course, it comes with a leather sheath, and seems to be a decent leather sheath. Just a straight belt loop. It seems it's got a riveted sheath. The one thing here, and it just it fits in, locks in, and it used to lock in. There we go. It's got a little bit of rattle to it, but it still doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. out of your pocket, but you know, I know a lot of people, they don't want their knives to move at all, have any sort of rattle. I never, carrying this normally, I've never noticed this knife rattling on the side of my, my leg, making a whole lot of noise. But I would imagine if you've got this tied to a pack or something like that, and you're, I don't know, on a roller coaster, that might bug you, but so far it's been okay for me. Now, of course, I put just a lanyard on there because I like having lanyards on all my knives, and I like the fact that if I'm stuck, I can, take this off, and I've got a, 30 feet of lanyard or however much is on here. Now, you've also got a pommel here, which is a textured pommel for, sometimes you need to use your knife as a handle or as a hammer, and she's a full tang, knife blade with a, I'm going to say, it's probably like a full flat grind. It's got ever so slight at the top here, maybe a tiny bit of a flat spot here, but for the most part, it's a full flat grind. Now, let's just see here too as well. Now, so what I didn't like about this knife is, out of the factory, these screws here, I don't know if they put thread locker on there or not, but within a very short amount of time, these screws started to back off, and they did get this, these groovery handles were very, very rattly, and they started to come off, and it was disconcerting. If I hadn't noticed and lost one of these screws, it might have bothered me, but man, oh man, I was lucky enough to catch it. I put some thread locker on here, some blue thread locker, tightened it up, and so far it's been pretty good. The other thing that really, really bothered me is the tip on here. It's awfully hard to tell, but the knife came reasonably sharp out of the factory, but the tip was not sharp at all. It was extremely dull, and I don't think they overheated or anything like that, because I didn't notice any signs of overheating. I just noticed that they didn't get the tip completely sharp, and that bugged the heck out of me. And the other thing was right here at the ricasso, it was not sharp there at all too. So you've got about a finger width of blade at the bottom here, which is not very sharp. And I think what I would eventually do is I would put a little bit of a sharpening choil in there. And yeah, so now another knock on this knife is this here. I wish they had, instead of putting that in there, it looks nice for sure. I wish they had come more straight up. Straight up, it'll allow you to use this part of the knife a whole lot more, because really, I mean, you've got almost an inch of that blade. So if you're trying to cut straight this way, I mean, your blade will cut it, but then it gets hung up on this little bit of a lip here, going right straight through it. And it bugs me. I mean, especially if you're doing some fire sticking or anything like that. So you've got your knife, and you want to start curling it, but then everything gets hung up right there. That's kind of a bothersome thing. But other than that, I mean, the knife feels well in your hand. You've got some really, really aggressive jimping on here. Now this blade here is not quite 1/4 inch, but it's pretty damn thick. This whole thing here is 9.9 ounces. So it's got some heft to it, but it's not overly big compared to, it's not overly heavy for what it is. It's got, quite a nice big thick blade. Not quite 1/4 inch, but pretty darn close. And it extends right down to the tip. So, I mean, you've got a really, really good amount of meat on this knife all the way through to the tip. I don't think you're ever going to be worried about this tip, snapping off or anything like that. I've certainly stabbed this into a few things and, tried to, bang, and then peel off the wood. And, it's held up, extremely well. The 1095 heat treatment on here, this knife is made in China. Usually that doesn't bother me, because I remember looking at this knife, and it was it was this, or it was a K-bar I was looking at, and the K-bar was well over $100 bucks. I think it was about $130, where this one back in the day was just a little over 60 bucks. And so for twice the money, I could have got a K-bar. But I think, you know, for the money, I thought this was extremely well, a really, really good piece of gear for the money for sure. Now, I've looked at this today here, and I do believe you're a little over 80 bucks for something like this. You're starting to, I think, get to the place where you might want to look at doing something a little bit different. There may be some more budget brands out there that are a little bit less. At 60 bucks, this is a no-brainer. At 88 bucks, it's a maybe. All right. So back to this jimping here. You know, the jimping is really good. If you've got some gloves on, it's really good glove jimping, but it can turn into a hot spot if you're using it to bear down and you want a little bit of, because sometimes what you're going to do is you're going to put your thumb up there, you're going to use that for kind of some fine work. Then it can be a little bit of a problem because this jimping is pretty aggressive to the bare skin. On a glove hand, it's perfect, but you just want to be, you know, careful, just because you're in the bush, and in no time you can get yourself quite a little blister on your thumb. I know I'm coming off like a giant pussy by saying I get a little blister on my poor widow thumb, but it happens. All right. Now, would I recommend this knife? I think I still would recommend it. You know, it's extremely tough. The 1095, really, really tough steel. The heat treat is decent, although I think they could do a little bit better job with the heat treat. Cedric and Ada has done some steel testing on the Schrade 1095, and it was about 20% less edge holding than a similar K-bar 1095. So that causes me a tiny bit of concern, but I don't worry too much about the edge holding ability in a fixed blade, because most of the time what I want this fixed blade to do is to process wood. And even with less edge holding ability than a K-bar, it'll still process wood all day long. If I need to cut carpet with it or some twisted sisal rope for hours at a time, I'll pick a different knife. But if I'm heading out to the bush to make, you know, to do some feather sticking to start a fire, I think I'm totally fine with this 1095 steel. So I think I will give this knife, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Its knocks are this grivery. I think this jimping is a little bit, and the big knock is this this here, where it takes up so much of the blade, and the tip not being sharp out of the box. Those are, you know, are cons for me. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for this. Would I still recommend it? I still would recommend it if you can get this knife on sale around 60 bucks. At 80 to 90 bucks, I think there are a little bit better options out there for the money. So that's my fixed blade review. Eventually I will do an update on this, because I'm going to replace this grivery with some wood, you know, and I will probably, I wonder about taking this off, and just turning it into a straight, but we'll see. I mean, this coating has held up reasonably well, but it doesn't, you know, it starts to look a little bit like hell. Once I get this all spiffed up, I think I might take that off, and I might find a way to see if I can grind this completely down too as well. No, I'm not a great grinder, but I might, you know, I have some friends who have a machine shop out in Tabor. They've done some really good knife work for me over at East End Iron. Trevor and Spence, hell of a guys. If you're in the Alberta area and you've got, say, a titanium knife that you want to, file a clip into or something like that, East End Iron, ask for Trev or Spence in the machine shop, and they will be more than happy to help you out. It's my little bit of shout out. All right. Please, you know, I want to say thank you for stopping by. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe and help me spread my voice. I really, really appreciate it. Other than that, in the time of the COVID-19, please stay safe. Keep your stick on the ice, the shiny side up. This is the Big Canucker saying adios.